The Atlantic Ocean. Midnight, 1942. A cargo ship is moving silently. The crew is on watch. The sea is calm. Nothing is in sight. Then a torpedo strikes. The explosion is so sudden and so violent that most of the crew are thrown into the sea before they even realize what has happened. The ship is burning, sinking. The freezing waters of the Atlantic. Darkness. And soon, the sound of another torpedo. Because tonight, there isn't just one submarine. There are many. The Germans call this the Rudel tactics. In Turkish, pack tactics. Dozens of submarines move in coordinated radio contact. One spots the convoy, calls the others. They attack at night, on the surface, before radar can detect them. In 1942, this tactic was so effective that Allied commanders began to fear a possibility. Britain's sea lanes could be cut off. And if the sea lanes were cut off, no fuel, no food, no ammunition, Britain could not survive. Churchill later said, "The only thing that truly frightened me during the war was the submarine threat." And this was one of the heaviest statements to come from Churchill's mouth. This battle is taking place between two forces. On one side, Nazi Germany's submarine fleet, the Kriegsmarine's U-boats, under the command of Admiral Karl Dönitz. On the other side, the Allied naval and air forces of Britain, Canada, and the United States. Destroyers, frigates, and aircraft striving to protect the convoys. Dates: September 3rd, 1939 to May 8th, 1945. Duration: exactly 6 years. This was the longest battle of World War II, and the only conflict that never ceased for a single day. Location: the entire Atlantic Ocean, an area spanning millions of square kilometers from the coasts of North America to England, and from Arctic convoy routes to the South Atlantic. A small but critical note: this battle is often overlooked because it is not visual. No tanks, no infantry, no geographical front lines. Just the endless ocean, invisible submarines, and sinking ships. But if Britain had been defeated in this battle, all other battles would have been rendered meaningless. Field analysis. The Atlantic Ocean was both the stage and the weapon of this conflict. Britain is an island nation. It receives most of its food, all of its fuel, and the vast majority of its war materials by sea. This means that whoever cuts off the sea lanes cuts off Britain. Germany was well aware of this reality, and submarines were the perfect tool for this strategy. Invisible on the surface, extremely difficult to detect, and capable of sinking large ships with a small crew. Geographically, the most critical region was the air gap in the North Atlantic. In this area, aircraft taking off from both Britain and North America lacked sufficient range. Convoys were left without air support in this region, and German submarines exploited this gap to the fullest. The Allies' geographical advantage, however, lay in strategic points, like Iceland and the Azores. Bases established on these islands eventually closed the air gap. And once the air gap was closed, the balance of the war shifted. Geography in the Atlantic was not static. As technology advanced, bases were established and ranges extended. Geographical advantages shifted hands. This is one of the most fascinating aspects of the campaign. Forces comparison. The balance of power in this conflict shifted dramatically over the years. And this shift was due to a single factor: technology. Between 1939 and 1942, German submarines held absolute superiority. Dönitz's U-boat fleet was sinking dozens of Allied ships every month. In 1942, 84 ships were sunk in a single month. The Allies' production capacity could not keep up with the number of ships being sunk. On the Allied side, the convoy system, destroyer and frigate escort, primitive sonar technology. But there was a gap. The code couldn't be broken, and detecting submarines was nearly impossible. Then the balance had shifted. And here lies the mystery. It wasn't a single factor that shifted this balance. A series of technological advancements came into play simultaneously. Long-range aircraft, advanced sonar, centimeter-wave radar, escort aircraft carriers, and the most critical factor, the breaking of the Enigma code. British cryptographers at Bletchley Park decoded German submarine communications. This allowed convoys to avoid submarine groups, and the Germans didn't realize it until it was too late. Technology won this battle, and this is one of the most important lessons of modern warfare: preparation phase and command structure. The two main figures of this battle faced off against each other for years without ever meeting face to face. On the German side was Admiral Karl Dönitz, the architect and greatest advocate of submarine warfare. Before the war, he asked Hitler for 100 submarines. He claimed that with them, he could force Britain to surrender in 6 months. He entered the war with not 100, but 57 submarines. Yet he nearly succeeded. Dönitz knew his crews very well. He spoke with them personally and saw off the crews sent on every mission himself. Because he knew most of the men he sent out would not return. The U-boat crew mortality rate was one of the highest of World War II, 75%. On the Allied side, there is no single name. This battle was won through the coordinated efforts of multiple nations. British Admiral Max Horton, as commander of the Western approaches, developed the convoy system and counterattack tactics. The Royal Canadian Navy formed the backbone of convoy protection in the North Atlantic. And the anonymous cryptographers at Bletchley Park, led by Alan Turing, became the battle's unsung heroes. America's entry into the war at the end of 1941, however, permanently shifted the balance. American shipbuilding capacity far exceeded what the Germans could sink. Liberty ships were being produced at a factory pace. The war became a game of losses and gains, and in that game, the Germans could not win. Chronology of the war: 1939 to 1940, First Blood. On the first day of the war, the British passenger ship Athenia was torpedoed. 112 civilians lost their lives. This marked a brutal start to the conflict. In the early years, German submarines took advantage of the lack of a systematic convoy system. Allied losses rose rapidly. 1940 to 1941. The Happy Times. German submariners referred to this period as Die glückliche Zeit, the happy times. Convoy protection was inadequate, sonar was primitive, and there was no air support. Dozens of ships were sunk every month. Dönitz's pack tactics were nearly unstoppable during night attacks. 1942, the dark year. When the United States entered the war, German submarines found a new target: the unprotected American East Coast. Operation Drumbeat began. The Americans had not yet established a convoy system. The lights in coastal cities burned at night. Ships cast silhouettes against them. 620 ships sank in a single year. This was the darkest period of the war. 1943, the turning point. May 1943 went down in history as Black May, but for the Germans, 41 U-boats were sunk in a single month. Dönitz withdrew his fleet from the Atlantic. This was the de facto turning point of the war. The cracking of the Enigma code, long-range aircraft, and advanced sonar. All three came into play at the same time. The submarines were no longer the hunters. They had become the hunted. 1943 to 1945, the final act. Dönitz continued the fight with new technologies, the snorkel, new torpedo systems. But the balance of power had shifted permanently. Each month, more U-boats were being sunk, while fewer Allied ships were lost. When Germany surrendered on May 8, 1945, the surviving U-boats surfaced to surrender. Strategic and psychological imbites. The strategic importance of the Battle of the Atlantic is simple yet absolute. Had this battle not been won, no other battle could have been won. If Britain's supply lines had been cut, it might have been forced to surrender by the end of 1940. The supplies, equipment, and troops needed for the Normandy landings could not have crossed the Atlantic. Lend-Lease aid destined for the Soviets would not have reached its destination. The entire logistical foundation of the war rested on this ocean. What would have happened if Dönitz had been given the 100 submarines he wanted? This question deeply preoccupies military historians. Because with 57 submarines, he nearly succeeded. With 100 submarines, cutting off Britain's supply lines might have been truly possible. The psychological impact was also profound. British and Canadian sailors' families received news of losses every day. Crews set out on every mission, wondering, "Will I return this time?" U-boat crews, meanwhile, fought with a 75% mortality rate. This means that 3 out of every 4 men did not return. From the perspective of the technological race, this battle offers the most important lesson of modern warfare. No matter how powerful the weapons and strategy may be, the balance can shift instantly if the opposing side gains a technological advantage. The cracking of the Enigma code proved this. The Battle of the Atlantic raged for 6 years without a single day of respite. In this battle, a total of 30,000 Allied sailors lost their lives. Approximately 3,500 Allied ships were sunk. On the German side, 28,000 U-boat crew members lost their lives. This represents 75% of the entire U-boat crew. These figures starkly illustrate the true nature of the war. Sailor was one of the deadliest professions of World War II. On both sides, this battle teaches us this: war is not always won on the visible front lines. Sometimes the most decisive conflict takes place where no one can see, in the depths of the ocean or in a dark room at Bletchley Park. Dönitz said after the war, "Our enemies, science defeated us." This admission is one of the most honest assessments of defeat ever heard from a commander in history. The Atlantic Ocean remains in the same place today. Its waves are just as powerful. But beneath those waves lie the memories of tens of thousands of people. They sank, but they were not forgotten. In our next video, we're heading to Italy. 1944, a plan to strike at the heart of Europe. And the biggest obstacle in the way of that plan, a mountain, a monastery, and German troops sworn to hold it. Monte Cassino, attacked 4 times, repelled 4 times. See you in the next video.